winter ice. Now that is experiencing record growth in Antarctica. Why is it happening and why do we need to care? Robert Lee Hotz is right here beside me and he's going to explain it as he always does. Hey there.
Well, why do we care? The sea ice around Antarctica is growing in recent years at a rate equal to the size of the state of Connecticut every year, 6,600 square miles, at a time when the sea ice of the Arctic at the North Pole is melting every summer by about the same amount. And what's the reason? Well, you might as well ask the wind. And the wind is why. A report coming out in Nature Geoscience on Sunday, researchers from the NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and the British Antarctic Survey have analyzed millions of records from a series of U.S. defense satellites that have recorded day by day the motion of the sea ice around Antarctica. And what they have found is that this growth, which has really been puzzling climatologists in recent years, is driven by these northward winds that are pushing the sea ice as it forms away from the shore out into the open water, where one, it just simply covers a greater expanse, but two, those patches between those ice flows, those patches of water, are themselves then more likely to freeze. And so in a very local way, this is what they think is going on. Now, why is this going on? Why is the wind in Antarctica doing this? They don't really know yet. These are tied to other climate cycles in the southern hemisphere, which may or may not be then tied to global things. When I say climate cycles in the southern hemisphere, I mean things like El Nino or something called the Southern Annular Oscillation, which of course we all spend a lot of time thinking about.
How does this affect, though, in terms of if it doesn't have any negative impact on marine life, on any other thing? I mean, is this something to be worried about, or is it just sort of an event that's happening and we're taking note, but they don't see anything negative that could be happening from that?
Well, there's no direct connection to our weather and well-being here, unlike the Arctic. I mean, the decreased amount of the sea ice, summer sea ice in the Arctic, for instance, is being blamed for snowier winters, for instance, that we have down here in the temperate zones. Antarctica, I remind you, is the most isolated place on Earth. It's an immense continent, 2 miles thick with ice. It's surrounded by the Southern Ocean, and it doesn't really directly impinge on us, except that it is the planet's heat sink. So anything going down there is of course of concern to scientists, but they have particularly been bothered by the fact that its behavior is so different, at least on the surface, from what's going on in the Arctic.
Interesting, and they'll continue to study this and the why of why it's happening, I assume. All right, Lee Hotz, thanks so much for giving us that and more in the paper today by you. Appreciate it.